Alright, I'm gonna try this again. I'm getting fucking waylaid on all sides by fucking retards. But anyway, the wedding at Cana. Mary notices that the wine is gone, tells Jesus to help. He initially says, "Why are you asking me to do that? It's not my turn. It's not my time." She turns to the servants and says, "Do whatever he tells you." What he tells them to do is take those 6 empty jugs over there, fill them with water. So they do. And then he transforms the water in these 6 empty jugs into wine, and the people drink it and they like it. So you end up with, first there's nothing, there's no wine. Then you end up with 6 jugs filled with water. Then you end up with 6 jugs filled with wine, and then you end up with 6 empty jugs again. So it's kind of a circular narrative. Okay, so first, Mary's head, she empathizes. There's no physical representation of it, there's nothing. We're missing something. There's no wine. That's the emptiness. Then Jesus says, okay, fill 6 jugs with water. So there you go, that's 1. That's 2. That's 3. That's 4. That's 5. And that's 6. Each of these lines is a jug filled with transparent, see-through water. The 6 days of creation from Genesis 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a hexagram, and the I Ching, it is the receptive. And while there are 6 lines, there are 12 line segments. This is the 12 apostles, the 12 tribes of Israel. It's also in Revelation 22, the last chapter of the Bible. The angel showed me a river, the river of life. The tree of life grew on either side, bearing fruit once a month, or 12 times a year. So here it is. Here's the 12 times a year, and here's the river. Okay, here's the water that fills the jugs. Now they get filled with wine. So wine is not transparent like water. So 4, 5, 6. Now we have this. This is the creative in the I Ching. It is again a hexagram. This is 6 feminine lines. These are 6 masculine lines. So now we have Mary. Mary notices. Mary is receptive. Mary is open and concerned about others. She says they have run out of wine. They need help. Then here's Jesus, the creative, the masculine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 masculine lines, the creative. He has filled the jugs with water, and then they say water is also an expression of sorrow, like tears or water. This is Mary's empathy for the people who don't have wine, and here's Jesus, the creative, provides the wine. At the Last Supper, he says, "This is my body, this is my blood." In the crucifixion, he makes himself a big bloody mess. That is like wine. Okay, and so you have the 6 days of creation, you have the 12 apostles, you have Mary, the receptive, Jesus, the creative. The concept of Mary as a vessel being filled by the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, in order for Jesus to be immaculately conceived, is also represented here. This is the male and the female. The image of God is male and female. The likeness of God is male and female. The wedding at Cana takes place on the 3rd day, like the resurrection of Jesus. It's his first public miracle. It's a big deal. So then what happens afterwards is everybody drinks the wine, and now we're back to what you have here. There's 6 empty jugs, which can still be represented by the receptive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 feminine lines. We've got kind of a circular narrative. First, there's just an absence. Mary notices there's no wine. At that point, there aren't really any jugs. And then Christ says, okay, take those 6 empty jugs. So he provides the structure in accordance with the creation narrative in Genesis of 6 empty jugs, fills them with water, puts wine, and then we're back to here. So if you think about breathing as an example, you breathe in, you're receptive, you breathe out, you push out, and then you breathe in again. But another way to look at it is this: since this represents 6 jugs with water, and this represents now the 6 empty jugs that Christ defined as being empty, and this is the creative. So it's this, while it looks the same as this, it's not the same, because when you breathe in, your body then takes in the air that it breathes, and it uses the oxygen, and then it kind of separates, sort of like in the creation narrative where God separates the light from the darkness. It takes in what it can use and what it wants, and then it separates what it doesn't want outwardly. Your lungs do this, and your respiratory system, and then you need to be receptive again to the pushing outward of that stuff. So it's almost like eating and then digestion and pooping, or drinking, like this is your throat and your esophagus or whatever, and then here's your body processing what you drank, and then it comes out. So this is an anatomical an anatomical metaphor, and it is just indicative of the fact that receptivity comes first, and the first thing that happens in the wedding at Cana is Mary noticing the absence of the wine. That is empathic receptivity. She notices that people are missing something that they should have, and then she points it out. That gets translated into action, and then that gets translated into enjoying the fruits of that action. So there's a lot more to the wedding at Cana, but this basic structure is there are echoes of this in many places, and this basic structure tells a story that, you know, if you think about when you hear something, sound waves come in your ear, and then your brain translates those sound waves that into what we perceive as sound, and you might perceive it as some things as speech, and some things as music, and some things as machinery noise, or whatever, like the background noise you're hearing during this video. Anyway, your mind is both receptive and then creative, and then this receptivity here is interesting. So the I Ching is hexagrams, which are paired trigrams. So this looks like one thing, but it's really 2. So if you think about being physically receptive to sound, as an example, your ears take it in, and then your inside, both there's external and internal receptivity. You need to not only have the sound come in your ear, but you also need to be paying attention. You need to have some kind of conscious focus on what's happening, and then you process it for meaning. You try to ascertain what the sounds mean. You try to identify what the sounds are. That's one side of creativity. And then the other side of creativity is your heart responds to what it is. If you hear someone crying for help, you might want to help them, as an example. Or you might not, in which case this video really isn't for you. But anyway, you hear something physically, you attend to it consciously, that's receptivity, and then you parse it for meaning, and then you decide what, if anything, to do about it. And it's very important to be receptive both on the way in and on the way out. So what your heart decrees, you should do, regardless of what the consequences might be or whatever, is what you should do. So If your heart tells you to do something, you need to be open. You need to be open to that. You need to accept what your heart wants to do, and then you need to let it through, like release it outward into the world. So you have this, physical input, this physical capture of information, and then you have attention. Okay, that's being receptive to something, and then you have parsing it for meaning, and then you have choosing what, if anything, to do about it. You need to accept what your heart wants to do about it, and then just let that flow through. And Taoism is about being in line, in accord with nature, and flow. And that's kind of another meaning of this. What the wedding at Cana is a parable. Everything in the New Testament is a parable, regardless of whether it appears like a parable or not. That's one representation of it.